I'd like to call the meeting to order. Will you please rise and we'll say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Feasel,
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting, November 18th.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzman. And were there any corrections? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
And I will abstain. And motion carries. Thank you. Okay, comments of board members. I would like to welcome everyone this evening. What a wonderful looking group. And we're here to honor 4 people this evening. So this is really going to be an exciting event. We're very proud of our student and so glad that you could be with us this evening. And we'll be saying a little bit more later, but you make us very proud. So thank you for doing so well. And Mrs. Feasel, it's bittersweet that this is your last session. And
It is.
This has been a wonderful board to work with, and we've all gotten along so well. We're going to miss Cheryl. She's been a wonderful board member.
And I keep saying I'm not going far. I'll be away from this seat, but I have a wonderful replacement.
Right, and we're happy that Mr. Tim Workman is here with us this evening, so thank you for coming. Mrs. Getzman.
I will make it very brief. Welcome to everybody. Owen, again, congratulations from all of us. And I echo what Dr. Bennett said about Cheryl. It has been a pleasure working with you for a number of years on the board, and your insight has been very helpful to all of us at the district, and it is greatly appreciated, your years of service. So thank you, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. And I consider myself still the newbie on the Board of Education. And I can't tell you what an honor it is to work with this esteemed group beyond anything that I ever dreamed of. And I will miss my colleague here, but we welcome Mr. Workman. And I was just saying to Mrs. Feasel, how proud we are of all of our children, all of the students who are using their gifts and taking advantage of using their gifts. And I know that they're going to do that for the future and the benefit of our community and our world. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Mrs. Feasel.
Well, again, I have been on the board, it will be 8 years, the 31st. And this board is compassionate, and I have been so humbled working. Paula Baroni was on the board when I was, and you came right on, so you had my vote. So I just think it's been a wonderful impact that we've all have made in the district. And when you come and you represent one another and, wanting to be part of our district, that is what it is all about. So thank you for coming. And I think it would only be fair to recognize 2 spouses in the back that are here, board member spouses, Mr. Feasel and Dr. Bennett. So thank you too for supporting us on our board leadership.
Okay, and we'll go ahead with our commendations and communications.
All right, well, thank you. I'm going to try to stand up and adjust here. We're in tight quarters. There will be a day soon where we'll have a little more room, but for now we're here. It's just a privilege to be able to recognize a number of individuals here tonight that are just instrumental in what we do here in Mount Vernon. And so the first person we get to recognize is Owen Decatur. Owen, do you want to come up here? Appreciate, you can stand right here with me, and I'm just going to share a few thoughts, and I know we have some other things, and see, he wants to get right behind his lectern already. He wants to start talking. Well, so who'd you bring with you tonight?
I brought Mrs. Keaton with me.
Well, and you also brought two other pretty special people.
My parents also showed up too.
All right, so Sean and Renee are both here tonight. Thank you, folks, for doing such a wonderful job with Owen. So just a couple quick things before I read a bit of a decree from the board about Owen. Owen is a 4-year marching band and symphonic orchestra. He's been a section leader. He's been a part of NHS. A 4-year soccer player, and you know, something that really is impressive, and I talked to Mr. Will just the other day, and Owen's been instrumental in really working with the administration and some of his fellow students in really bringing some awareness and some interesting and unique opportunities with some cultural diversity and inclusiveness, and we greatly appreciate Owen for doing that. So that's awesome. Owen is being honored tonight for his academic achievements, and across the country, 1.5 million students take the preliminary SATs, and 1.5 million, and about 3% of those students, the top 3%, are recognized across the country. And Owen's representing Mount Vernon City Schools, and Mount Vernon High School is one of those students. That's 50,000 in the United States out of 1.5 million. It's quite an accomplishment, and one I know you're proud of, and your parents are proud of you as well. So I have a proclamation I'm going to read. I got to get my glasses on here as I get a little bit older, but so this is a resolution of commendation honoring Mount Vernon High School's 2020 National Merit Scholarship Commended Student. Whereas the Mount Vernon Board of Education is committed to providing learning opportunities which enable each student to achieve maximum personal growth and academic development. And whereas 34,000 commended students throughout the nation are being recognized for this exceptional Academic Promise Award. Whereas commended students placed among the top 50,000 scorers of more than 1.5 million students who entered this competition by taking the 2018 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. Whereas those being named commended students have demonstrated outstanding potential and academic success. Whereas these students represent a valuable national resource, recognizing their accomplishments as well as the key role their schools play in their academic development is vital to the advancement of educational excellence in our nation. Now be it resolved that Mount Vernon City School District's Board of Education claims the following student for being named a National Merit Scholarship Commended Student, Owen Decatur. The Mount Vernon Board of Education of Mount Vernon, Ohio commends and congratulates Owen for his achievement, expresses its appreciation for the recognition he has brought not only to himself, but to Mount Vernon High School, and wishes him success in all life's future endeavors. Congratulations, Owen. So it is generally, we're blessed every year to have students of high academic accomplishment like Owen. And one of the unique things that we've done over the years is they have an opportunity to share about a special teacher that has meant a lot to them. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Owen, but before I do that, I know you asked me to pick this up for you, so I got
it. So first, I'd say thank you for all of the kind words. I truly am thankful for basically everything that's happened to me these 4 years. Thank you to my parents for always supporting me, even though your nagging can get quite annoying. It's nice to know that you always have my back. And then, so the teacher I'd like to talk about is Mrs. Keaton. And I haven't been taught by Mrs. Keaton in about 3 years, but somehow she still manages to affect me both in and out of the classroom every single day. Not only has she made me a better student, she's made me a better person. I would not be able to reach all of my academic heights without her guidance. And out of all my 4 years, I don't think there's ever been a teacher that I've been closer with and more enjoyed spending time with than her. And I'm very, very thankful that I've been able to be taught by her.
That's pretty special. You should have seen Miss Chris kind of starting to choke up there. And I'll tell you what, that means more than you can imagine to teachers when their students recognize them. And she obviously taught you a love for reading. I know that's her, it really something she even challenges me with sometimes. And so that's a wonderful thing. The second thing, the second commendation and communication has been one that's been a month in coming. And we're really excited to commend this young fella. I knew there was something really unique when I got a call one morning, and it was Grant, and he said, "Hey, do you mind if I go out and drive the roads with you?" Seriously, you want to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go drive the roads with me to check and see how this whole thing does? And he did, and I can remember picking Grant up, and it was cold that morning, and it was pretty nasty, wasn't it? We're driving the back roads, and I'm looking like 4:30 in the morning. I got a stocking cap on, and he's videotaping me from the sideline asking questions, and knew at that point in time we had just somebody in the press that really was doing an outstanding job. And I kept hearing feedback after feedback about the excellent articles that Grant has been writing on behalf of the whole community. And so we thought it appropriate, Grant, to put your name in for the Ohio School Boards Association in recognition for the work that you do. And thankfully you were recognized as one of those folks. So I do have a kind of a commendation for you as well. You're going to take his picture? All right. And so, whereas in each community, the public schools are shaped by the community to provide the most appropriate and effective education for the school children who attend those schools, and whereas public schools are dependent upon the community's support in countless ways, including support in setting goals for the education of our children, establishing successful volunteer and booster programs at the schools for funding of facilities and operations, and in the election of qualified school board members. Whereas much of the community's knowledge and opinions about the public school depend on responsible reporting by local news media representatives who decide which news to share with the community, how much attention will be focused on various issues, and what the tone of the reporting will be. Therefore, now be it resolved that Mount Vernon City School Board of Education names Grant Pepper Knox Pages to the 2019 Ohio School Boards Association Media Honor Roll, calling attention to the ongoing responsible and exemplary nature of reporting on this community's public schools. We express our appreciation for your balanced and accurate approach to sharing with this community both the challenges facing our schools and the successes achieved by the staff and students. Your work has aided this community in focusing on the goal of providing the best public schools we can for every child who attends them. Presented this day, December 2019. Thank you. You want to talk about Miss Keaton?
Miss Keaton is awesome. That story's of mine. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it for considering me. We have a lot of really great reporters in this community and who cover Mount Vernon City schools, and so it's an honor to be considered for this award. And this is a really exciting time to cover Mount Vernon City schools. There's a lot of great things happening here. When I came in last year, one of the first stories I wrote was about the Fieldhouse project and in its infancy. And so I consider myself lucky to cover the district during this time through the highs and the lows. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Not usually out in front this much, but it's just one of those kind of nights. So the next item on our agenda is a little bit of a bittersweet discussion. And so Cheryl Fiesel has been on the board for 8 years, and she came on the board back in 2012. It was a little bit of a challenging time back then, and sometimes the call to service is not always easy. And her heart led her here, and I can tell you from my first start here, she has always extended a hand. She's introduced me to the right folks, always given me good counsel and guidance, and I know it was even tough for her to think about not continuing. I know I took her and her husband on a little tour of the field house just before the weather really turned bad. And I could tell just by that little twinkle in her eye that she would love to have seen that to completion. But I would just say, always know that you were instrumental in making that happen. And so you'll always be accredited as a real big part of that. She's going to spend some time with family. She's got some little precious ones down in the Carolinas. I think that will be drawing them a little bit closer. So with that being said, Cheryl, congratulations, and thank you so much for all that you've done.
Thank you.
And on my board report is a slide.
You want to do your
Well, the very Jen, you can come on up. The very first slide has Jen's.
oh, the very first slide. Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm in great company tonight. Not just all of you, but I got to invite some really neat people to join me. So if you don't know Jen Dean, which most of you probably do because her family has been in the district as children from my building on up into teen years, Jen was one of the first people that I got to meet at Pleasant Street, and she came bounding through the front door and she wanted to talk fundraisers, and I was like, whoa, I don't like fundraisers, I think was the first sentence out of my mouth. But I've had the privilege of being with her for the last 2.5 years. She has served on our Pleasant Street PTO for 11 years in many capacities, always serving as our treasurer, and she really desires, I think we both have the same heart, to button up processes and fine-tune things to make sure there's no margin for error and no one is left kind of hanging without multiple levels and layers of accountability. She has a servant's heart. She's in my building nearly as much sometimes as my aides and my staff. We'll have some time together over Christmas break. I'm working on a sensory path and some painting. My PTO is working on redoing my teacher's lounge. My teachers don't know that, so wherever that is in the minutes, hide it for like another couple weeks. But she selflessly serves our staff, our students. She helps with meals. When there's things going on in the building, she's in and out during her own breaks from work time or alters her workday to accommodate things that are going on with us. And so we are so very grateful for that. I thought Andrew was going to steal her from me when her family moved, and quite possibly Kenna could have ended up at Columbia. So I won't tell you how many knees I wore out on my pants hoping that they stayed. But so we're super grateful to have her. And so this is just a little something for you in there. And thank you for your 11 years, and I can't wait for your 12.
Thank you so much. And I'll just say real quick, Mrs. Weaver is phenomenal.
No, my name's not on the slide.
But so many times when she said something, I thought, there are so many people that do so much more, and I'm so very grateful. Thank you for this honor, truly, just because I know the countless hours being married to a teacher that is poured into these students. So this is just a minimal amount of what you guys do on a daily basis. So thank you for the honor. I really feel unworthy of it, but thank you. So greatly appreciate it.
Well, Jen, we too as a board just want to recognize you with a really small token of our appreciation. The behind the scenes person is something we do on a monthly basis. Every school has those really special people that do those things behind the scenes, and we love to recognize them. So just a small token on our behalf.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well done. So Pleasant Street, the other thing we do on a monthly basis is as we have one school each month presents a little bit about what's going on in their building. They highlight something, and they're going to highlight something. We'll have a couple quick little public participations, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break so that we can cut some cake and maybe just honor our folks here. And then we'll get to the business part of it, and you don't have to stay for that unless you really want to. But we'll go ahead and turn it over to you and let you do your thing.
Do you want me to take the mouse, Bill?
You sure can.
You know how that goes from admin meetings,
Absolutely.
right? My hands are already sweating. I do not like having the mouse unless I'm in my own element. I want to take a moment to introduce to you Jody Boyd. And thank you. If Jody is not someone that you've had the opportunity to meet, Jody was a Pleasant Street, were they Panthers? Then?
Yes.
Not back then.
No,
then,
not
is
when
all
I
I'm
was
gonna
there. Well, no, not when I was there. I don't think it was just Pleasant Street. I don't think it was Pleasant Street anything.
Well, Jody went to Pleasant Street. Her adult children went to Pleasant Street. And Jody, even though they have adult children, has made the decision to foster. And they have a little guy that's been in our building with us. And he is a ton of fun. And the thing that's super exciting is maybe, hopefully, just maybe, he'll be able to join them as his forever family pretty soon. And she's been able to watch Pleasant Street grow and change over, should I say decades? Is that
Yes,
acceptable? Decades.
It's a painful truth. Yes.
And the thing that is so super neat is I had on my heart and mind some ideas for our board presentation. And just wasn't feeling settled, didn't have peace, and we're like 10th hour, almost 11th hour. And I get an email from Jody, hey, do you have time to meet? I want to share some things with you. And I love when things happen, when you have a vision and you have a cute little folder and a notebook and you've been jotting things down and you're thinking to yourself, in a year, I want this. In 3 years, I want this. And in 5 years, I want that. And unfortunately, for anyone who has to live with me, that's how my brain works. I'm always looking for the next thing that I'm trying to attain or to get done. And what was so amazing is Jody walks in and we sit down in the conference room and she starts to share some things on her heart. And I mean, it was like somebody was taking everything that I wanted done and handing it to me piece by piece, like literally handing it to me. So we're going to share with you really what was a 40-minute meeting that ultimately outlined between the two of us the next 5 years of some opportunities that we want to present for our Pleasant Street students specifically, first and foremost. That being said, because of the nature of the content, what we're trying to do, they can't be their voice. We have to be their voice for them because it's so very sensitive for them. And I want to take some time first and foremost to share just some data and stats from Pleasant Street. And these are coming from various locations. So mobility off of the Ohio Department of Education website, and this would be reported from EMIS, 13.1% of my boys and girls last year were in my building for less than 50% of the year. So the transiency, I'm losing 6 this week and getting 2. I mean, it is every day there's someone moving somewhere. From an economics standpoint, and this goes to the changes that Jody was recognizing coming in as a mom round 2 in our building, so to speak. Based on ODE's website, we're at 94.2% of our students are economically disadvantaged in 18-19. Just to give you an idea, in 2013, the building's ED percentage was 69.17. So that's the change over the course of 6 years. To give that a comparison to the county, we got this from off of some census data reporting. Knox County had a 24% poverty rating in 2016-17 in the county. So 24% of our students are living in poverty. As it stands today at 9:30, that will change tomorrow morning, where just under 32% of our students receive specially designed instruction for an IEP. That does include my boys and girls who are speech only. Right now that we know of, I have 5 homeless families. Not all of them are always reporting. There's a couple others that we're questioning whereabouts right now, but that's just what I absolutely positively know. And as of this morning, 26% of our boys and girls in our building are foster, which ironically, exactly a year ago this month, we had 10 more than that. So last year I had 36 kids at this time of year that were foster or court-placed kiddos. So it gives you just a little bit of a glimpse of what things look like for our students. To share even going into the winter how that changes for some kids, we have one family that when the winter time comes, the water and the electric and the heat to their home gets shut off and they move out back into, for lack of a better term, into their shed where they heat it with a wood-burning stove, and their only access to running water is when they're at school. And that's what their family does every winter. Right now, between Mrs. Whitmore, myself, and Mrs. Erlinson, there are 12 kids that regularly, we have little bins for them, and they come down to either me or to our school social worker's office or to the clinic. We get them out of what they're in, change them in, well, you don't change them. They change into something clean, kind of pull themselves together, brush their teeth. We have one little girl every week, spend about 45 minutes trying to get all the tangles out of her hair so she feels a little more pulled together going into the day. But there's 12 kids that we're trying to help them feel more comfortable in their presentation at school. And we have one in particular who literally is coming in with animal feces and urine on her clothing, and she's up super late at night because as a 4th grade little girl, she feels responsible to make her house clean enough that her baby sister can come home. And that's the reality for more students than I could have ever imagined in our building. And so how do we take that? We shared the NME component in the trauma and working with their brain and those neurological pathways with all of you last year. We're a month from being done with our training. So we have that piece to the puzzle. So now how do we affect this? That's the physiological piece. How do we affect the physical piece so that we can have them in a better emotional state to impact academics? You want to go ahead and share that?
Sure. So Mrs. Weaver did a really great job of explaining what brought me to this point. I can tell you that I think when it really hit me was the little boy that we brought in from foster care and we're in the process of adopting. He spent the first 5 years of his life in a home exactly like Mrs. Weaver's describing. No running water, no electricity. They lived in a 3rd floor attic of an abandoned home. He didn't have access to food. He didn't have access to, running water, any of those things. He went into foster care, was in foster care for a year, and he came to our home. And for us, to give him what he needed and take care of him was just second nature. And so we go through all of these things with him, and we're driving to school one day last year in 1st grade, and he just says, "Thank you." We're not talking about anything. He just says, "Thank you, Mom." And I said, "Well, you're welcome, buddy, but what are you thanking me for?" And he said, "Thank you for the awesome clothes." And I was taken aback because to me, that's just a common everyday thing. That's just, well, yeah, of course, you have nice clothes. And thank you for getting me a haircut and for fixing my hair. Now, this child is 6, and I'm thinking, wow. At 6 years old, he's realizing the changes that are already taking place for him. Take him into school, and immediately going into Pleasant Street, I noticed just a difference in, I don't want to say the atmosphere, but the culture, if you will. There was a different feel to the school. There was a difference in the students walking through the hallways. When my adult children were there, you knew all the children. You knew the children's parents. The children's parents talked to you. You talked to the children. And here, there were a lot of downward looks. There were a lot of, there wasn't a lot of eye contact. And as I got him into school and we started working through that 1st grade school year, and I looked at some of these children and I thought, I saw in these children what I saw in our little guy when he came to our house. And so I started looking in some of this education, we're required to do as foster parents, but there's so many things that hygiene impacts in these children. And I want to say that you feel like that it's common sense, but in day-to-day conversations with a lot of people and a lot of parents, you find that it's not. I also work in the Pediatric Rehab Center for Knox Community Hospital, and so we see a lot of the same types of situations in that day-to-day work. Students with poor hygiene are 5 times more likely to be made fun of and bullied. And I think that it goes without saying that we know the impact that that has on the students, everything about them, their self-esteem, their mentality, their ability to just learn and absorb, their ability to retain. It results in poor social skills. They don't have the confidence to interact. They don't have the confidence to play with other children. They oftentimes isolate themselves. In addition to that, some things that we may not think about is the impact that it has on the other students in the class who may not necessarily lack the hygiene. When children, they don't understand it. They learn from their parents. They know what they hear at home, and things are said, and unpleasant things are said. And it impacts the children who do not have lack of hygiene to some degree just as much in different ways as it impacts the children who do suffer from lack of hygiene. They don't understand it. They may not want to play with that child. They may themselves become bullies because they hear other children doing it, and they don't want to be the child who's bullied. So that pulls them into a negative light, a negative impact that they wouldn't otherwise participate in. It results in increased absence from school, whether it's, again, because of low self-esteem. I don't want to go to school because I'll be made fun of. I don't have clean clothes. I don't have clothes to wear. They're at risk for increased illness. They're at risk for increased diseases, gastrointestinal, head lice, ringworm, all of these things that they would need to stay home for. Or maybe the parents send them to school and the teachers or Mrs. Weaver are calling the parents and saying, I'm sorry, this child, they can't stay here. You have to come back and pick them up. That results in poor education, that results in failing grades, that results in repeating classes and repeating grades, which falls right back into the cycle of poor self-esteem, not being able to stay caught up with their peers, not being able to just move forward like they need to on a daily and weekly basis. So when I was at parent-teacher conferences with our little guy's teacher, we just got to talking about different things, and she knows the background too, that I was a Pleasant Street student, my older children were Pleasant Street students, and now we have this little guy. And we started kind of talking about these things and the impacts that she sees in her classroom. So I'm at home getting ready for work one morning, and I thought, I'm going to contact this teacher and just say, if I put together like 5 Ziploc bags, and I'm going to put some basic essentials in there, toothbrush, toothpaste, body wash, shampoo, bring them into her. I want her to keep those in her room, where if she has a student who needs those items, they're readily available. She can discreetly slide them in a backpack, send them home with the student, and that maybe gives the student what they need. So I'm sending her my message, and she said, oh, that's really great. And she said, I have some in my class I can think of, but there are some older kids also who could benefit from it, because we get to 4th and 5th grade, we hit that puberty level, they don't have a lot of those things. And she said, would you consider it for some 4th and 5th graders? So sure. So I go from, well, instead of doing 5, I'll do like 10 or 15. And then I thought, Mrs. Weaver, I need to see what she thinks about this. And our teacher said, you know what, we should probably run this by Mrs. Weaver and make sure that she's okay with this. So Mrs. Green and I were literally in a race to see who could get to her first. I mean, I think that Mrs. Green was like basically running to the office, and I'm emailing and texting and everything else. And so we met, and I told her, I said, this is my thought. This is what I want to do. And I see it every time I go in Pleasant Street. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how she looks at it, for Mrs. Weaver, I feel like I'm in there a lot. Like I'm constantly popping in, or I'm sending an email to her, Mrs. Gilmore, hey, what about this? And I see it, and I hear the reports that my 2nd grade son brings home and tells me about. And I just decided that in this community and in this day and age, there is no reason for us to not make basic hygiene products readily available to our students. Do you want me to go on with the big picture, or would you like to take that over? You go right ahead.
So Jody came to me with the thought of the hygiene bags, which then turned into, do we do lots of bags? And then that turned into me getting out all my notes of what I'm dreaming with when the new building's done. My custodians have it down to the minute of when they think wrestling will be out. I keep telling them to watch what they wish for. But if and when that big locker room space is empty, I've already measured it and drawn it, and there's cute little blueprints. So that being said, I even have marked on the walls where the 220 outlets go for washers and dryers. And so what we're looking at is just beginning right now with having some cubbies and hygiene bags for the boys and girls to have at their disposal. And when we handle that in the office right now, that's usually working with the parents and saying, hey, these are some things we want to do. These are some things some boys and girls are saying, and we really want your child to have successful days at school. And almost always they're very receptive to that. As we move on down the road, by the time we get to the end of the school year, the goal that Jody had set in mind is having 50 bags in place for our boys and girls. And then really then, and you'll see kind of on one of our other slides, partnering with the Knox Community Hospital, the Knox County Health Department, and start pulling together some hygiene lessons for our students above and beyond just that little snippet that they get in 5th grade, like, oh, hey, your body's changing. And for some of my kids, that's like a year or two too late. And just helping them know like how to better care for themselves when their fingernails are, you know, darker than the shirt I'm wearing, and we're down there kind of trying to help them clean up a little bit. A year from now, what we really envision having is like an actual storage, like something that you could open up that would have bins with students' initials, would have their specific things in it, stuff that they could change into. I've even started to play a little bit with a schedule. Like, do we say like, okay, this day at this time, we can rotate through 1st grade girls, but this day at this time would be 1st grade boys, to where they at least have a time just to feel pulled together. And then what Jody's goal is through grants, through Tide, through Dove, through local business partnerships to have those things be resupplied and replenished. And then the way down the road, in my cute little pink folder at school, is drawn out in the locker room space. Truly having fully pulled together what Jody has dubbed a junior jacket care closet, which I love the name of it, but going even a step beyond that and having a place where already taking their things and laundering them on a daily basis, someone's laundry is being done. So why not be more intentional with what we're doing and how we're doing it, and have a place where there are continuous opportunities for kids to feel like they can come to school and be pulled together. It's amazing to me to watch my one student in particular when we kind of help her get all the tangles out of her hair, and mom isn't able to because of a disability to just help do that with her, and she'll stand there in the bathroom and her hair's not like mine, it's nice and smooth and straight, and she'll rub her fingers through it and smile, and it just makes you laugh, and she almost prances back down the hall to class until 3 days later when she has tangles again. As far as sustainability, starting now with just small bits and pieces, and Jody's been making contact with local businesses. I'm sharing with PTO and staff tomorrow, and then looking into some community grants to help sustain those ongoing needs for our students. And then again, partnering with KCH or the health department for hygiene lessons and curriculum to help run those lessons. And then really what we want to try to do is, without giving the students a name, being able to look at like, hey, these are the kiddos that we're helping. And once that help is in place in a systemic and predictable way, how much is that changing their social emotional components? How much is that impacting their behavior in a positive way? And then ultimately what's going to come with all of that then is, what is that doing to help with their academic growth? And then that would give us at least some data to report back out to people who've chosen to be a part of what we're doing, to help those kiddos have more successful opportunities at school. So that's, in the nutshell, the big picture version of what we see over the course of the next few years. There are some school districts, Cleveland East is one, where they have completely transformed unused spaces in their schools to do exactly this, but you typically see it at the secondary level. And what they're doing with that is teaching those kids to have those independent adult skills. How do I do my laundry? Because we're teaching kids how to do their laundry in their bathtub. Like, we physically take our kids down to the locker room and say, okay, what can you do tonight to rinse out your jeans and at least rub the fabric together and wring them out and hang them over the shower curtain rod? But how do we take them a step beyond that and say, okay, how can you do that? How do you run the machines? There are kids that don't have that at home, but maybe are going to be experiencing that when they get to hopefully college or adulthood someday. So that's our goal. We couldn't find the right way for our kids to present themselves. Mrs. Whitmore and I talked about trying to find quotes from the students, but how do I get that from them without drawing attention to their situation? And so we, after days and days and days of consideration, chose to kind of let it go and thought it would speak for itself over time. So, any questions for Jody or I?
I have a question. When you talk about the transition of students moving out, are they staying in the district or they're going far?
They aren't staying in the district. Just in the last week, I've lost 2 to Michigan, 1 to Sherman. I'm losing 2 more to Sherman, 1 to Danville, 2 to East Knox. 1 is going to Twin Oak. That's my only within the district. And those situations aren't open enrollment situations. Those are families that are, like my kiddo who's going to be going to Twin Oak has gone from East to Highland to East Knox to Learning Center to me and now to Twin Oak, and he's a 5th grader. So lots of transition, which is what we're typically seeing. Yeah.
Any questions?
Just thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for caring for our
Thank you.
kids at that level.
We're excited. Yes. I think someone shared my notebooks with Jody.
When you get down further into those phases, we have students in Key Club at the high school. Will that help any of that? Putting, cubbying,
Amazing. I will definitely
bagging.
jot that down. And are you University Key Club?
Called being at the
That's
right
great.
place
That's
at the right time.
There you go.
Well, and I think that's what's so special about the community is the number of people who will stand up and take a service heart and do those kind of
Absolutely.
things. I got to be honest, when I moved here 7 years ago, I didn't realize that there was some of the economic challenges. I didn't think about that with Mount Vernon. I kind of thought of it as a community that was maybe a bit more affluent. And while we all have those pockets, to have a couple schools that are almost 100% free and reduced, our district's position on keeping our focus on the student, the whole child, I think is really important. And that's the work you're doing there, and many of our buildings are doing, quite frankly. I know Chris has high school students and key clubbers leading that charge with a buddies program and some different things, and all to help them to be successful. So thank you. All right, the last couple things we have before we'll take a little bit of a break here is, Hayden, you ready to share with us today?
Okay, so first off, we have our winter sports starting up. I know I mentioned last week, but now we've started to have some games and practices every day. And one of the games was our first home wrestling tournament, which we placed first. So that was exciting. And this Saturday on the 14th is an ACT. And for music, we have band and orchestra concert on the 17th at 6:30 in the theater. And choir the day before that, the 16th at 7 o'clock in the MVNU chapel, which isn't only the high school, it's the entire Mount Vernon City Schools. And exams for the high school are next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we have Christmas break after. I know everyone's excited about that too. Any questions? There isn't much going on this time of year, but any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hayden.
I know Hayden mentioned a few of those concerts. Believe it or not, starting tomorrow night, we have 11 concerts in 8 days. And so if you've got a concert you want to go to, whether it's one of our elementaries, a middle school, or a high school event, it's happening. So go to the website and you'll find it. So, all right.
Mrs. Nesbitt? Okay.
No, Mike?
And public?
Let's see, Mike.
Okay, good.
Okay. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break to kind of get a chance just to chat with some of our honorees tonight. We have a number of them. There's some refreshments, there's some cake, and we've got some other little goodies over here. We'll probably start back up as I look at the clock. We'll probably take between 10 and 15 minutes. We'll start back up. Let's just say we'll start back up just shortly at around 7 o'clock. So if you want to continue talking, you certainly feel entitled to go out in the hallways after we kind of spend some time here. You're welcome to stay for the boilerplate stuff of the agenda, but I understand if you want to leave. All right.
Okay, we will continue then with no board items for discussion. So any additions or deletions?
I do actually have 2 items. They are on the board agenda, but they were not there on Friday when we left. So the first item that is an addition is an Ohio flooring contract. I'll explain that to you in a little bit. It's in the superintendent section. And the second is a boundless behavioral health contract. It'll be an amendment to our contract to provide some additional support for a student. So we have added those since the Friday agenda.
All right, thank you. Okay, superintendent's report.
Okay, have a number of items under the items for information. First, item number 1 is suggested board meeting dates for 2020. Again, as an item for information. Get a chance to take a look at it. We'll talk about it. In our January meeting, we'll be more specific about what we look like moving out. Generally, we've stayed at 6 o'clock on the third Mondays. But of course, we can discuss that in January. So we've kind of corresponded some dates there for you to take a look at. Terry has included a calendar, a blank one, for you to take a look at as well. I've also included in item number 2 the expiration of a term of office letter from the Knox County Schools Career Center. Jody Getzman's term expires there. And so we put that in there as an item for information for you. And also under item for information is a facility update. I'd like to share with you just real briefly what is going on facility-wise. As I shared before, I'll open this up. As I shared before, some months just seem to be busier than other months. But as of Monday, December 9th, here's what we're looking at. So as we look at the field house, the exterior walls, as you've seen, they continue to go up to the rafters. They'll be complete within the next couple of weeks. The idea will be we need to get that whole thing really covered in, so to speak, so it's under the weather or out of the weather. The interior floors have been poured in the locker rooms, the lobby, the weight room, and the wrestling room. The front half of the field house, quite frankly, will be complete this week, and I've got some pictures to share with you. Once that is complete, they're ready to start working on the interior walls. And so they're going to take the front half of the building and work on now the interior walls, and then they'll find their way moving. That'll take about 3 weeks, and I think you're going to see them beginning that work here at the end of the week, first of next week. And then, of course, in mid-January, they're going to take the largest portion of the field house, which are the interior floors, and they're going to pour that space. It's almost 44,000 square feet, so it's a huge space. The machinery that they'll bring in is really incredible. And it was really neat to see some of those things here recently. So, I have the courtesy of Kim and Pam Rose, who enjoy getting out with their drones. Kind of gives you a bird's eye view of really how big that is. Look at the parking lot, and then you're looking at the field house. If you look right here where it kind of jets out a little bit, we kind of call this the lower portion. Because it's not as high as this portion. This is where your weight room, your locker rooms, your wrestling room, your lobby area is. And then it steps up, and this is where the court and the track will be, the 4 courts and the 200-meter indoor track. So you're seeing it's all under roof. You're seeing that the brick going up the side, and this was taken actually a week and a half ago. They're really almost up to the top edges now, all the way around the entire complex. This is a picture. I know it's hard to see because of the lighting in here, but this was a neat picture because they bring in quite a crew to begin to pour. But you're noticing all these guys in orange, these are Career Center students who come over. And while they really didn't participate in the physical part of it, just seeing what's going on and being part of that trade industry is really kind of neat. Again, these pictures are so much better when they're in a way that you can see them. So they're pouring, that whole area is all concrete. Interestingly enough, you see these, oh, there you go, John, that helps a little bit. I can back up. You see these 2 windows here? These are windows that'll be looking out of the weight room. So there are some big windows that will really bring in lots of natural light. I'll back up. You can kind of see those are some interior walls that they'll start going up with. See that big machine? They're pouring that. So all the concrete goes up that arm, and they pour it out, and these guys just really go to town laying that concrete. So again, tomorrow they're supposed to finish the wrestling room and the weight room. Then that whole first half will be complete. They'll start working on the interior walls and go on from there. The maintenance and bus garage has really slowed down a good bit. They're really now going to take care of a lot of the field house. So once the exterior walls are complete and they begin to work on the interior walls of the field house, they will then shift over and work on the exterior walls of the bus garage. All right, once the bus garage exterior walls are done, they'll do the interior floors and interior walls. You're looking kind of mid-January to get this finished up. Weather is always a factor, and you're looking here for the interior walls and floor to be done sometime in February. This is kind of an interesting view. So this is you want to turn that light off again, John? Kind of nice to see it in the. So obviously we are under roof with this facility. But the reason I picked this one out is you can see what had been done right here with Yellow Jacket Drive. So remember, this used to come all the way around this loop, and then it had just one way to go, and it went out, and it was always one way. As we came down, we striped this to be 2-way traffic. You can go right or left. There is a turn lane over here that turns in here as well. I will say once this opened up, we were a little concerned about just new traffic flows, but I have had so many wonderful comments. You can turn that on, John. Wonderful comments about just the traffic flow. It used to take me 20 minutes when I started down the drive. Now I'm in and out in 5. And this isn't even the complete. I mean, it's going to be different yet. Here's kind of a long view. John, why don't you hit that light? One last time. Sorry, bud. I can just keep you there at the light. It's just so much easier to see. All right, so this is going out into Cougar Drive, and so this road won't really change all that much, but as you see it come up in here, tying these two in right here better, and then really finishing off the parking lot here will be the goal. It won't be a perfect straight shot, but it'll be a nice 2-lane all the way out through here. And I really think it's going to open up the campus. If you've not driven down there, I encourage you to do so. Here is MBNU's field. They're going to start working on their bleachers over here at some point in time. It's just really enhancing this area to a good extent. So just thought I'd share with you a little bit of an update relative to that. Go ahead and turn it on, John. I think that's it. Any questions about kind of where we're at with that?
I don't have a question, just a comment that I did go down the new section, and it's really cool. It's great. It's really cool. And to see those projects going up, it's so exciting, and to know that the community is so much a part of it, it's unbelievable.
Well, and it's going to be even more accessible when the Mount Vernon Avenue Bridge is complete. I mean, obviously, you can go that way, you can take a left, but you're kind of stuck there for a while until the light hits you just right. But even with that, we have buses getting out earlier than they ever have. Morning drop-off, all our buses are up top. So we've just made some interesting changes that I think people are excited about. And item number 4 is an item for information. It's an addition to the agenda item. I put this here for you to review at a later date. But we had our bid opening today. We had 3 companies bid on the floor. When I talk about the floor, we're talking about the 4 courts and the track. That's significant rubber and court surfaces. Come into the lobby area with carpet, the classrooms with carpet, the weight room with the rubberized floor there, and then even the wrestling room with a vinyl down to really protect the concrete. You always worry when you go out to bid. We had it kind of priced out through our architect who took care of the bid process for us. We've had really wonderful results with bid processes. We thought it was going to inch closer to $700,000, and the winning bid today came out at $570,000. So significant savings through the bid process, and we really feel good about that. You always worry about some of these overruns in these areas, and I feel like we can move in a really positive direction. Ohio Fours is the one who won that bid. They're out of the Holmesville, Shreve area. They've done a lot of our gymnasium stuff before. Just a quality company, more local. And we're excited about that. Anywhere where we can save some money and still get a quality product, we're excited. So that's items for information. Then under board recommended items for board approval, I have just 3 things here for you to consider tonight. Number 1 is our organizational regular meeting date for January. If you recall, we have to have a meeting by January 15th. And so we've chosen here Monday, January 13th as our organizational meeting. It is the second Monday. However, we need to have it before the 15th. If the weather was not so good that night, we would actually have an inclement weather day of the 14th so that we met that 15th mandate. It is a 5:30 meeting. We'll take care of some of the preliminary things at 5:30. We'll install some officers as well as our new board member. So it'll be hopefully an exciting night in January when there's not a whole lot to get excited about in Ohio anyway. Also have included for you the district calendar for 2020. What you'll notice about that district calendar is, and I'll pull it up here for you, we really looked hard at what our professional development needs were. We're implementing a new math curriculum and really the front-loading time to do that. And so we decided this year we were really going to front load some PD before the students even started. So we didn't have to take out student days within the calendar. And we worked really closely with MVEA. Darcy was part of that group. We looked at various options. I've been in constant communication with the Career Center, as that's always an important factor, and we did a comparison with them. So while they'll start a little bit earlier once we all are into school, our calendars are really, really very similar. Everywhere from Thanksgiving to Christmas is the same. Our spring breaks all align up. So for the most part, we're really feeling in pretty good shape there. The one thing that we have been pretty consistent with here is graduating on Memorial Day weekend. Ironically, with where Memorial Day is next year, it's on the 31st of May. And so just the way the days all worked out and we started, we'll be graduating on the 23rd. Probably several other districts in the area will be there. I know Centerburg is looking even the week earlier. It just didn't quite line up with Memorial Day. I like Memorial Day because it leaves for some travel. But it's really hard once school's out of session, as you see school would be out of session here on the 27th, to get kids to come back, whether it's through band or orchestra or those things, for a Sunday graduation. So we put it here on the 23rd. You'll notice that our instructional hours are still way, way above and beyond what the state is, the minimum is asking for us. And that certainly is really, really important. And I do have, for my esteemed colleague, Miss Regola-Dye, a 2-hour early dismissal on the last day of school, which is kind of a hallmark there. And the teachers love it, by the way. They love it.
Thank you.
So we have that one. And then finally, there is a contract for the flooring of the field house. What I've included for you is Fannie Howie, who is our architect, who led the bid process. Again, you can see they had an estimate of around $700,000, just seeing where it came in at such a good price. And they looked through the documents after today, and they would recommend to us to go with Ohio Floors. So those 3 items for your consideration.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I can second
Thank
that.
you, Mrs. Fiesel. Were there any questions? See, hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. And next we have a motion to appoint President Pro Tem for the January 2020 organizational meeting.
I would nominate Dr. Bennett.
A second.
I guess we'll call the roll.
Mrs. Getzman.
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
And I will abstain. Motion carried, and thank you, I guess.
No, thank
Although
you.
I've talked to some others
Thank you.
about considering that, but. Okay, and then number 4, appointment to the Knox County Career Center Board of Education. And I would make a motion to appoint Mrs. Jody Getzman to the Knox County Career Center. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Fiesel. And I know Jody's done a great job, so would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Fiesel.
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman.
Abstain. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and next is the student liaison report, and I'm going to make it really, really brief. There was only one item that was very different from anything that we've had in the past, and this was the Skate Zone 71. You can see that one.
Oh, stay right here.
Okay. And they have a brief video, but essentially what they've done is the roller skating has come up with 30 field trips using friction and motion and the construction of the skates to teach STEM skills. So they've come up with these 30 field trips, and the video will just give you a taste of, yeah, I think it's pretty short, so.
Do you know a high school athlete that excels at their sport? They are also awesome in the classroom and making an impact in the community. He or she could be our Encova Insurance Athlete of the Week. Submit your nomination to 10tv.com/athlete of the week.
Okay, so remember the days of skating as a kid, right? Roller skating? Well, Skate Zone 71 roller rink has been part of the Columbus community here for more than 40 years.
Yeah, but now the future of skating is education. Kids are visiting Skate Zone with their schools for a STEM experience like no other.
Do we have STEM at the roller skating rink? Oh, I hear some yeses, I hear some no's.
There's a lot more than just roller skating going on at Skate Zone 71.
We have science, technology, engineering, and math at our roller skating rink, okay?
These kids are taking part in an interactive STEM field trip, part of a nationwide program started 4 years ago by United Skates of America.
What we've done is taken all of the elements in a roller skating rink, whether it be lights and sound and skates and friction and motion, and we've put those in STEM lessons that we've copyrighted, and we've launched nationwide in our rinks as well as many of the rinks in the RSA, which is a roller skating association.
Today's program was all about the science of skating.
If we didn't have friction and I could get you standing up on your roller skates and I gave you a push, what would happen? You'd go on forever and ever, right? If we could get you to stand up, would you want to roller skate for the rest of your life? No? Yeah, it would be kind of fun, right?
The program has been incredibly successful. Just last year, more than 400,000 kids attended the more than 30 different STEM field trips offered across the country.
Many of the kids have never held a wrench before, never worked with that, and never seen a bearing before. And it's exciting to them because they understand how to take something apart and how to put it back together. So how it's engineered.
We learned about friction and we learned about how roller skates work.
There we go, to the left.
And it's kind of cool because I didn't realize there were so many parts to a roller skate.
And of course, after the hour-long lesson, the kids get to skate.
I like the fact that when you're roller skating, your feet can feel the wheels and it's so soothing. And like it just feels so cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And then I guess what you're feeling, is that because of the friction with the wheels and stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, a lot of fun skating there. Now, the science of roller skating is just one of many STEM field trips that they offer at Skate Zone for local school districts. They have classes on sound and music, and all the classes, they provide their own STEM educators.
That was unique, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, fiscal services are next.
The financial report. This is going to be very short, unless you guys have questions. You scroll. Would you stop right there? I want to point out two things. One of them is that you will notice that our investments are coming down. This is the reality of the fact that we were gifted a large sum of money to build the field house. We put it out and invested it until we needed it. So as we are paying the bills now, we're having to draw that money back into our general fund so that we can pay the bills. But we've been able to glean quite a bit of interest off of it in the meantime. So even though it's sad that we're having to bring it back in, it's been a blessing to get all that interest. And I wanted to point out one more thing. This is a kind of a large amount of money to be an outstanding check. Sometimes this happens. It's happened before when we've paid Adina at close to the end of a month and they just haven't cashed it. Well, that's not the case here. And the interesting thing is that almost all of this represents the last bond payment for Mount Vernon Middle School. So congratulations. Holds a special place in my heart, so it was really kind of cool to be involved in that. So in terms of the financial report, this is as boilerplate as it gets other than that. So if there are no questions, I would have you open the appropriations document. I know this is hard to see, but there's really only one number here. If you'll go a little more there, Mr. Cedar. There's only one number and it's right here. And what we are doing here is appropriating our wellness funds that were given to us. Now, they were given to us. We knew they were coming, but we didn't have them. And then we didn't get them till the end of October. So now we're appropriating them so we can begin the process of spending them. That doesn't mean we will spend all of that this school year, but we are appropriating it in case we would find the need to do so. So that's really it in terms of fiscal services. But again, congratulations on paying off the middle school. That's awesome.
Exciting. Thank you for a good report. And we have some donations.
Several donations. Mentioned this before, we have a very generous community. It's always kind of neat to have the opportunity to read these. And because my eyes are getting bad and I have not yet gone to glasses, I'm going to read them from the paper in front of me here. So from Madison Filler, we have a donation of a book to the Wiggin Street Library titled May Among the Stars. From Addie Steinmetz, we have a donation also to the Wiggin Street Library titled Uni the Unicorn. And we have an anonymous donation of a book titled Cog to the Wiggin Street Library as well. We also have a donation from Kids Shelf of bulletin board and classroom supplies to elementary libraries. We have a donation from Staples of pens, pencils, USB chargers, surge protectors, and other miscellaneous items to Dan Emmett Elementary School. And the Pleasant Street PTO donated 14 books to the Pleasant Street Library. We do have a book that has been donated to the Wiggin Street Elementary School Library entitled Gus and Me, in memory of James Baumia, who is the father of Tracy Knuckle, the gifted teacher at East Elementary and Wiggin Elementary School as well.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve those fiscal services items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola. Do I have a second?
I can second
Thank you, Mrs. Fiesel. Were there any questions or comments? All right, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And we are to business services for our legislative liaison.
Thank you. I don't think that you need to open that link there, but I do want to update you on several things. First, I had contacted OSBA concerning the Cupp-Patterson bill and the update on that. And there have been 6 hearings so far, and there will be more. The revisions will be made to the bill well into 2020. And there might be a final hearing this calendar year, but that it's doubtful. And the bill is not expected to be passed out of committee anytime soon. So it's just going to be sitting, I think, for quite a while. Regarding HB 76, this is titled the Ballot Uniformity and Transparency Act. And this bill would modify the form of election notices and ballot language for property tax levies. BASA, OSBA, OASBO, and several other organizations are opposed to this legislation. The proposal would have to have the ballot language include the value of $100,000 home, etc. And the people feel that that would not be, it would be too confusing for the voters to have that language included along with everything else that is confusing on levy proposals. So we're opposed to that. HB 122 creates the Opportunity Scholarship Program, and it replaces the Educational Choice Scholarship Program and the Pilot Project Scholarship Program, which it was out of Cleveland. And this is the one that people are very concerned about. It would qualify a student whose family income is at or below 400% of the federal poverty guidelines. Excuse me, that is not the concern. The concern is for the expansion of the voucher program. And HB 164 is the Student Expression Act. It authorizes that a student in public schools may engage in religious expression as in secular activities. It would remove a provision that points schools to limit religious expression to lunch periods and it also prohibits schools from allowing religious expression in class assignments. But the main concern from OSBA is still the Ed Choice program. And I did contact Representative Carfagna concerning that and how the voucher program expansion is not conducive toward our public schools. And I know Mr. Cedar had also contacted him. I did not hear anything back, but perhaps you did.
I haven't yet.
Okay.
But the voucher program is a concern, the way in which it's been kind of folded into a couple different pieces of legislation. Just to give you a quick example, this past year there were about 120 school buildings in the state of Ohio that were at an academic level that warranted those families the ability to go out and seek other places to send their children to school. By some of the additions along the way to different bills, the voucher program has grown in 1 year from 120 school buildings to now well over 1,200 school buildings. And therein lies a concern. About every building, every district in our area has a building involved in that. Some of the measures that they're using to determine the voucher program have already been proven to have flaws. We have 3 elementaries that have qualified for the Ed Choice Scholarship on the K-3 literacy score, which right now has already been proven to not be a good measure. And in the current report card that they're getting ready to make recommendations for, they're talking about not even including the K-3 literacy score in the new report card measure. But yet, when I talk to colleagues around the state, this is the one area that is really a hiccup for them, just because it's not measured well. I can tell you that over the past 4 years, we have had maybe 1 or 2 students at the most who have not passed the 3rd grade guarantee, but yet this K-3 literacy score is one that they're using as a measure that I think the legislature is hearing from a lot of folks about. So we'll see what that entails. Whether they make changes to that. But what that really means is that private schools in this case would be the ones that could benefit. If you're a student who is at one of those schools, then you could have the ability to go to one of those other schools at some tuition reduction. So we'll continue to work on that and advocate on behalf of our schools, because our folks are doing a great job. Especially in light of some of the many circumstances that we face. Under recommendation items for board approval, I have only one item. It's a facility use with mutual understanding of being billed for applicable rental fees, and that's Storyside Church for the high school auditorium.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve that facility request.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
We do have 2 additional items in this section that we pulled out just for voting purposes here. Item number 2 is the Ohio School Boards Association membership dues. The Ohio School Boards Association is an invaluable partner to our board and to boards throughout the state. So that's our continued membership. And then item 3 there is the Ohio School Board's Legal Assistance Fund. It's a very minimal amount that we can be a part of that legal assistance process. We've pulled those 2 items out for your consideration, as Dr. Bennett has to abstain because she's on that board.
Okay, I would entertain a motion then to approve those 2 items as read.
So moved.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. Do you have a second?
I'll be glad to second.
Thank you, Mrs. Fiesel. Okay, and if you'll call the roll, please.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel.
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
And Dr. Bennett.
And I'll abstain, and motion carried. Thank you. Student services.
I have just one item. This was one that was added to this meeting since Friday's board preview. And this is an amendment to our boundless behavioral health contract that we currently have in place. We need to temporarily increase some supports for the student. And so this, we believe this to be a temporary amendment. And if we go back to the original contract, then I will make sure that you're aware of that.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve that item as read.
I'll be glad to make the
Thank you,
motion.
Mrs. Fiesel. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Were there any questions for Mrs. Rose? Okay, hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Certificated licensed staff.
Thank you. Under personnel and certificated licensed staff, no items for information this month. We do have a number of items for board approval under section B, the appointment of substitute teachers, supplementals, and some extracurricular activities, as well as some volunteers for your approval tonight.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those items.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll be glad to
Thank
second.
you, Mrs. Fiesel. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Now we are to classified staff.
Under classified staff, I have no items for information, 2 items for board approval. The one is for employment of a 3-hour second shift custodian, and the other are the employment of some substitute positions.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those 2 items under classified staff. Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I can second it.
Thank you, Mrs. Fiesel. Any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. And is there any need for executive session?
I have no need for executive session. Maybe one final motion to adjourn from someone.
Okay, I
Yeah.
would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. And if you'll call the roll, we'll be ready to adjourn.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
I thought she'd say no.
I did too. Aw.
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, and we are adjourned, and thank you all for
Thank you.
coming this
Thank
evening.
you.
Good meeting.